It is time. It is time, you guys. I had to do a live video today. I had to do a live video right now to go over what happened. That's right. What happened at the Lloyd Banks show at Sony Hall. That's right, you guys. Sony Music Hall. I've got the full review for you. Are we seeing a little bit of an old beef reignited? Ever since Lloyd Banks and Joe Budden both did ever since Lloyd Banks and Jim Jones did the Joe Budden Podcast, it looks like there's been a little bit of a back and forth between two old rivals, two old rival camps, you guys. That's right. I'm talking about G-Unit, and I'm talking about the almighty Dipset, you guys. I'm talking about Dipset versus G-Unit, all the way back to the old days of Curtis, all the way back to the old days of Tony Yayo allegedly seeing Jim Jones behind the scenes at a concert. And Jim Jones is walking past Yayo, and Yayo allegedly screams out, "Boring!" That is what allegedly happened back in the day, you guys. There was always a little bit of a rift between G-Unit and Dipset, if we go back to it. If we go back to when 50 Cent was subtly trying to get Jim Jones away from Dipset. Does everybody remember that? Does everybody remember when Jim Jones was playing the fence between Dipset and G-Unit, you guys? I seem to remember that. Obviously, there's nothing wrong with it. Jim Jones had just come from being a independent artist, Koch Records, having a record that pretty much was one of the biggest Koch releases ever. Ballin' has to be up there with the top 5 Koch records ever released. Jim Jones solidified himself in the game, you guys. He solidified himself in the game, and he had a spot. He got a spot to the point where, Sony? What was it, Sony Atlantic or something like that? They made Jim Jones, you guys. They made Jimmy one of the chief executives over at a major label. He did so well. They said this guy came from an independent. This guy must have known what he was doing. He must have knew what he was doing. And, we've heard Jim Jones talk about it in the past. We've heard Jim Jones talk about how Cameron and Mace, they went to college to play ball. You know what I mean? They had the opportunity to play ball in college, you guys. So Jim Jones was kind of left in the hood. Jimmy was kind of left. I need everybody to hit that like button when you tap in here. I need everybody to share this video and make sure you hit the like button and drop it in the comments where you're tapping in from. I hate to break it to you, but Mikey T, we ain't going nowhere. We ain't going nowhere. You're Suge Knight now. That's right. You're Suge Knight now. I'm Puff. You're Suge Knight. Do you get the metaphor? Do you get the metaphor? Or were you too busy lying about C74? Huh? Do you get the rib, or were you too busy acting like that dude's bitch? Okay. DJ Spawn says Jim Jones can't handle Lloyd Banks. Jim Jones, well, we went over the records a few nights ago. There was people actually from the Joe Budden Podcast who actually told Lloyd Banks, what was his name from the Joe Budden Podcast, you guys, that told Lloyd Banks, in all honesty, Jim Jones would get you. Jim Jones would get you. He told him Jim Jones would get you in a Verzuz to his face. Lloyd Banks replied, everybody has their own opinion. And that's 100% facts. Everybody has their own opinion. There's people out there who think Jim Jones is a more successful artist. There's people out there who look at the way Jim Jones got into the game. Jim Jones climbed his way up the ladder from the independent star. Lloyd Banks was put on the radar. Lloyd Banks was put on the radar by 50 Cent on Beg for Mercy. But that doesn't mean that Lloyd Banks didn't have to earn his way, you guys. It simply doesn't mean that Lloyd Banks didn't have to earn his way. Like he said on the Joe Budden podcast, he actually remembers his peers. I'm talking about his school peers, not his G Unit peers. His school peers hearing his verses, coming to his first show. And soon after that, Lloyd Banks had made his way out of the country. Now, I was listening to a review. Emrek had a couple people on his channel. They were saying that the line for the Lloyd Banks show was around the corner. I would have loved to have been out that show at Sony, but I'm glad that I was able to literally watch the show on YouTube and take notes. I took notes while I took tokes of the marijuana smoke. You know what I'm saying? I took a bunch of notes, so we're going to go over the whole show. We're going to talk about Tony Yayo popping out, all the energy, all that energy that was there for Tony Yayo. Where was that energy in 2005? Nah, the energy was there in 2005. It was really the pushback. It was really the album's pushback from June. The album's pushback from June to August. Yeah, Shaq, he actually did a show earlier in New York in February as well. Banks's shows be sold out. You know, Banks's shows be sold out, but one dude on Emrek's show was pretty much like, y'all go check out Emrek as well. Real dude right there. He was saying that the line for the G Unit artist Lloyd Banks was actually around the corner. My dude actually had Lloyd Banks come out at his old club. I remember I was there. There was a line as well. But this was for the meet and greet. There was a line around the corner for the meet and greet. People love to meet Lloyd Banks, you guys. People love to be around the energy of Tony Yayo. But you know what, man? If we're talking about a tag team versus, Yayo seems like he wants to get in. Yayo seems like he wants to get in on this, man. Banks is the PLK. Yup, that's what everybody was cheering in there. PLK, 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 PLK. Yeah, that's what they were cheering, man. And that's what they were doing. They showed up. They showed up and showed out for Lloyd Banks, man. I've been really impressed from his two performances that I actually watched this year. You know what I mean? I wish I would have went to those shows. I didn't really hear about them, though. The last Lloyd Banks show I went to was here in Connecticut. The Banks Project, the Course of the Inevitable, Part 2. That's right. He's got Part 2. Yes, Solo. That's right. G Unit forever. Big facts. Big facts. G Unit forever, man. And so I do want to get into this exclusive. You know, Lloyd Banks jumped on the stage and he pretty much kicked the videographer off the stage right away. You know, they pretty much kicked the videographer off the stage right away. Banks is like, I don't want nobody on my stage. Hands up. Hands up. I don't want nobody on my stage. Put your hands up, Lloyd Banks said. Lloyd Banks actually kicked the show off with Empathy. He kicked it off with Empathy that was featured on The Course of the Inevitable Part 1. So you guys might want to write down some of these tracks. I'm going to make sure to mention each of the tracks that Lloyd Banks performed. Why? Because this is a review. You know what I mean? This is a review of the show that they just did. Many of the other guys, maybe they didn't talk about the full show review. That's what I'm on here to do, you guys. The first song Lloyd Banks performed was actually Empathy, featured on The Course of the Inevitable. Banks is like, if you've been rocking with Lloyd Banks since the mixtape era, make some noise. I want to switch it up a little bit. I'm going to go there, and then I'm going to go there. How many of y'all have been effing with me since 2002? How many, and in the chat, how many of y'all have the 5 or better mixtape series? How many of y'all in the chat have been messing with Lloyd Banks since 2002? I want to know. Just like Banks was asking the crowd, I'm asking every single one of you. Now, Lloyd Banks, after that, performed the record Shock the World, featured on The Cold Corner 2 in 2011. Man, the energy at Sony Hall, you guys, was absolutely insane for Lloyd Banks. Let's go. G-Unit for life. G-Unit for life. You already know, man. I'm going to get the G-Unit tattoo right here above my eye. It's going to be above my eye. It's going to be like unit. Yeah, that's right. G-Unit tattoos. Anybody got any questions? Make sure you super chat it as well. I appreciate you, DJ Spawn. Much love. Everybody share this video with at least one friend. I'm going over the Lloyd Banks show from Sony Hall. Lloyd Banks' next song was Shock the World, featured on Cold Corner 2. First song was Empathy, if you're just tapping in and you want to write down this track listing so you can go listen to some Banks later on. So the energy was crazy. Like I said, Banks is like, how many of y'all bought The Course of the Inevitable 2? How many of y'all bought The Course of the Inevitable 2 or streamed it? Banks is like, let's find out. If you F's with this album, put your hands up. Lloyd Banks then performed Dead Rose as the people were all cheering PLK. And you guys, Dead Rose was featured. There's a music video for it. There was a music video for it. Amon says, is Lloyd Banks in the lane of Griselda? Yeah, Lloyd Banks is of that same cloth. You know what I mean? Lloyd Banks is one of those artists that made all the other artists that wanted it to be about bars. You know, when we was all writing in our notebooks and shit like that, writing bars, we all wanted to live up to this music that was released. We knew we weren't going to jump on a mic. We weren't going to jump in the studio and record music unless it could live up to a certain standard. But then, as we know, Laffy Taffy and all that came out. As we know, Young Thug took over, the Migos, these guys who were rapidly repeating the Fight Night, you know what I mean? Cool concepts and songs for everything. It sort of made all of us writing in our notebooks kind of feel like, damn, man, maybe we shouldn't have played ourselves too much. Maybe it wasn't so much about, you know, trying so hard to write the best lyrics. Maybe it was about just coming up with saying some of the catchy shit that you actually be saying every day. You know what I mean? Some of the shit that you say every day could be considered some of the most catchy, considered some of the most catchy stuff, man. That's how it goes. Yeah, that's right, Keontae. Lloyd Banks did, in fact, exit G-Unit. He's doing his solo thing right now. And one thing I'll mention is that Lloyd Banks said on this show, he dropped 2 albums in 2 years. 2 albums in 2 years. And that is a bigger rate of Lloyd Banks releasing albums than ever, you guys. Lloyd Banks, the only time Banks has ever released 2 albums in a year is when they released Beg for Mercy in 2003 and Hunger for More in 2004. That's the only time, you guys. Lloyd Banks was a main attraction, like a Ludacris, like a Ja Rule. He should have been like a T.I. Share this video, everybody. Lloyd Banks should have been releasing an album every single year, and that is a flaw of the G-Unit and Interscope relationship that was kind of flooded. Their relationship was kind of flooded, you guys, to the point where they weren't getting to the opportunity to release as many albums as they should have. Please, if you love raw hip-hop content where the facts are actually there and the knowledge is actually there, and we're not just talking about conspiracy theories, subscribe to the channel, man. If you want a real YouTube channel, you know where to find it, man. You ain't going to find no flaws in this YouTube channel. You ain't going to find no flaws over here. You know what I'm saying? You ain't going to find no flaws over here. I keep it real. I never did nothing disgusting on my channel in life. And you know what, man? Now when I bring people onto the channel, now there's got to be more of a screening process. I'm going to let you know that. There's going to be much more of a screening. People ain't going to be able to fake it till they make it over here, talking about they want to talk their piece in the private chat. There's going to be no more of that. So let's get back to this review, you guys. I'm very excited to be doing what I do here on the channel, and that is talking raw hip-hop facts. You know, Banks is like, how many of y'all bought The Course of the Inevitable 2? Let's find out. Lloyd Banks said this before performing Dead Roses. Banks is like, how many of y'all F with the mixtape? Let's take it there. We got to get the sound right. Lloyd Banks' sound was off on the stage. He's like, bring it back, man. And then Lloyd Banks went on to perform Money Rules the World. Banks asked the crowd, as we always see him do during performances, y'all having a good time? Y'all having a good time? Banks went on to performing Love Me in the Hood. And Banks hit some acapella. We all know that's what Banks is known for. Doing that acapella shit, man. Doing that acapella flowing. That's why when people ask me, Mikey T, why are you talking about Jim Jones versus Lloyd Banks in a battle? I'm not talking about Jim Jones versus Lloyd Banks in a battle, you guys. I'm talking about Jim Jones versus Lloyd Banks in a Verzuz battle, simply. But now I'm talking about a tag team Verzuz. That's right. Swizz, you hear me, Swizz? Swizz Beats, Timbo, y'all hear me? Tag team Verzuz. Tag team Verzuz. I want to see it. Lloyd Banks, Tony Yayo versus Joel Santana, and Jim Jones. That's right. Talk your shit. Yes, sir. Appreciate you for tapping in, Terrence. Much love. So Banks is like, make some noise. What's up, Ice? This is my man, Ice, from the Joe Budden Podcast. If you getting money. So Banks brought up Ice from the Joe Budden Podcast. We all just saw the interview that he did over on the Joe Budden Podcast, to the point where they were talking about the Verzuz, to the point where they were talking about 50 Cent helping him when it came to learning how to record more properly. You know, him just seeing 50 Cent do things at the beginning of tracks. You know what I mean? Do things at the beginning of tracks like talk. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes say a word, sort of like 50 Cent did on Candy Shop when he said, so seductive. You know what I mean? It was really a learning process working under 50 Cent. I could see it. You know what I mean? I could see how much of a learning process it was, because you're literally watching somebody who is in the process of going diamond, you know, and just because you can't, you know what I mean, see that that's going to happen right then and there, you got to have faith in this shit, man. No, not Head Ice, bro. Not Head Ice, bro, the battle rapper. Speaking of Head Ice, I did do an interview with Head Ice. That dude is real as hell. Rap a Lot says, I hope Dipset won't fumble like they did with the Locks versus. Yo, man, that's why I'm almost kind of doubting making it a tag team battle, you guys. You know what I mean? I know Smack did that with the battle raps, but I'm almost doubting making a tag team versus. Banks and Yayo or Joel Santana and Jim Jones. I want to know. I'm asking the community, y'all. Major salute to Head Ice, one of the first dudes out there from the battle rap culture that gave me an opportunity. Hollow the Don and Math Hoffa would follow though as well, so major respect to them. Major respect to them. Yes, sir. We got a poll up right now. I want y'all to vote in it. But let me see. My dude DJ Spawn sent in a super chat. And this is how you get your comments read or your questions asked. Or if you want to promote a new song, I'll pin it up. DJ Spawn says, I thought Tony Yayo's first album was fire. Yeah, I was one of the people that actually bought Thoughts of a Predicate Felon. Yeah, that's right. I was disappointed when they pushed it back from June 27th all the way to August. I was one of those fans that was disappointed. I was one of those people watching the momentum, watching the music, seeing Yayo come out of jail and getting his opportunity. Everybody vote in the poll right now. If you haven't, vote in that poll. We're going over the Lloyd Banks performance right now. So Banks is like, make some noise. And he's like, what's up, Ice? This is my man Ice from the Joe Budden Podcast. If you getting money in 2022, put your hands up. And then that followed with Lloyd Banks performing Cake. That's right. Lloyd Banks performed Cake off of the Rotten Apple album, which was pretty much the warm-up song. You know, Banks don't rap with a backpack. I'm in it for the money. The cake. Yeah, man. G-Unit don't play, man. Major salute to Lloyd Banks. I really like that Cake record. It was a little short. If anything, that would be my only complaint about it. But they did a little street video for it and everything. Banks is like, what? What? You think you can F with me? You think you can F with me? No way. No way. So that's not clowning? That's not clowning? Oh, you think you can mess with me? No way. No way. Look at that like Chris Tucker. Chris Tucker to Chris Rock. You think you can mess with me? No way. Look at it like that, you guys. Lloyd Banks, look how he answered it on the Joe Budden. If you haven't seen it, go watch it right now on the Joe Budden podcast. Everybody's got their opinion. Lloyd Banks does not think that Jim Jones can stand up with him in a Verzuz battle, you guys. Lloyd Banks actually used to work with Joel Santana. These guys were tight, you know what I mean? After all that G-Unit animosity, you know what I mean? Is this like going to reignite the G-Unit and Dipset animosity? I don't know. You know what I mean? I mean, maybe they're just doing this to build up some hype when it comes to the music, some old 2005 shit. Maybe they're just doing this to build up some hype for the music, you know, or maybe they're doing it to get a check for a Verzuz battle. You know, 50's pretty much already made it known to the general public. 50's like, yo, I'm not doing a Verzuz battle. You know what I mean? He said he thought that was a thing that we did when we was all staying inside. Sorry to say it, man. Verzuz battles are here to stay, man. The Verzuz battles are here to stay. So Banks is like, you smell that? What? You smell that? Do you smell that? And everybody was vibing to this. Everybody started vibing to the I Smell record. You know what I mean? Everybody was vibing on the set. Banks, you know, Banks has some of the coolest lines in that. It's not in my nature to make a commitment, so let me breathe. It's not in my nature to make a commitment, so let me breathe. Shorty have an attitude while I breeze through. You know what I'm saying? This record right here, man, this is a dope song for Banks and Yayo to do together. You know, some of the records, you know, they can get through being Banks and Yayo, but others, you know, that feature 50 Cent, it's pretty obvious that there's a major gap in between them. You know, 50 is needed in a lot of circumstances. I don't doubt if Yayo and Banks did a Verzuz with Joel Santana and Jim Jones, I don't doubt, you know what I mean, that 50 Cent would come out and they would use him for the important records. You know what I mean? They would use him for Stunt 101, Popping Them Things. They would use him for So Seductive. You know what I mean? They would use him for the important records, and then they would let him go do his thing. He'd have a little brief opportunity. Because I'm just talking tag team here. We're not talking a full-on group versus group battle. Let's do something a little bit different. You know what I mean? Let's do something a little bit different. We just had Dipset up there as a group. You know what I mean? They just had Dips up there as a group. Let's do Jim and Joel's this time. We all know Cam took a step back from the music edit. Cam's next Verzuz should be a solo Verzuz. You know what I'm saying? Yo, Dan Pye, yo, I appreciate the super sticker, and I appreciate you joining the channel as a member. I appreciate you joining the channel as a member. Definitely appreciate it, man. Definitely appreciate everybody. Definitely appreciate everybody tapping in for this live review. Still waiting for that Bleak. Oh, yeah, man. Yeah, man. Actually, wasn't it? Yeah, Joel Santana and Memphis Bleak were going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Memphis Bleak and Joel Santana. Joel Santana told Memphis Bleak, he's not smoke, he's vapor. Yeah, that was messed up, man. Let me see, though. Extra Money says, Jim is not a good performer. Cam made them. Well, bro, Jim Jones proved that he was a viable act to get put on by a major label. Jim Jones proved that through his independent albums. You know what I mean? That's why there was a difference. Joel Santana was brought to Def Jam. Cameron brought him to Def Jam, right? Jim Jones had to work with the independent label. Jim Jones had to prove that he could sell just as much on that independent label as somebody like Lloyd Banks. And that's what goes into the conversation. Excuse me, guys. Sorry about that. I had to unplug my charger. And that what goes into the conversation that Cameron and 50 Cent had one time, you guys. That's what went into the conversation that happened when Cam jumped on the phone, when 50 was calling Koch the graveyard, and Cam was like, how is Koch the graveyard when my artists make as much as your artist? One of Cam's artists was on a major, Jewels, and one of Cam's artists was on a indie, Jim. Cameron was doing just anything he wanted. You know, Cameron went independent because he figured out he could make more money there. Cameron brought a label, and then he had markets open for major distribution, and he had markets open for minor distribution. Hell, a lot of the Dipset guys, like Purple City and all that, they were able to go out, 40 Cal, they were able to go out and get their own deals based on the fact that they were associated with Dipset. G-Unit had a harder time, y'all. G-Unit had a much harder time when it came to that. You didn't see any of the G-Unit guys releasing solo albums on independent labels. Besides who? Somebody in the chat tell me, who is the first G-Unit artist to release a solo project on an independent label? I will wait. I want to know. Who was the first G-Unit artist? Let me get a water. I want to know, who was the first? Nah. It was actually Prodigy, you guys. It was actually Prodigy. 50 Cent gave Prodigy the opportunity to go release those few albums. I want to say HNIC 2, and before that, it was one of my Return of the Mac. He gave Prodigy that opportunity to release those albums before he went to jail. Real shit from 50 Cent. Yeah, but we're talking about when G-Unit went on as a record label, bro. We're talking about when G-Unit went on as a record label. So, we got Tony Yayo on the stage, right? So, Yayo came onto the stage. With an absolutely amazing reaction. I always said it, man. Tony Yayo was like Max B and French Montana before Max B and French Montana. He was called the talk of New York for a reason, you guys. Tony Yayo was quite possibly one of the most interesting people in the music industry at one point, from Eminem wearing the Free Yayo shirt. Of course, I didn't know what the hell that meant. I didn't know what Free Yayo meant at that time. I thought they were talking about drugs. You know what I mean? I was like, what the hell is Eminem doing with this Free Yayo shirt at the Grammys? You know what I mean? I was kind of out the loop. You know what I'm saying? I was kind of out the loop as far as Tony. I'm just going to keep it real. You know what I mean? I'm not on here sugarcoating anything. If I find things wrong with records, if I find things wrong that artists do, I say it, voice my opinion. Things that they do that I love, I voice my opinion. That's what it is. It's about transparency. It's about being real on the internet, you guys. Yep. I know Mobb Deep definitely got their G-Unit tattoos. Yep, that's right. Haran the Don, my brother right there. Lloyd Banks was called the Punchline King. At this show at the Sony Music Hall, the people were cheering it. PLK, 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 over and over and over. The people were vibing with Lloyd Banks, man. From what I heard, there was a line around the corner. So Yayo came on to a great reaction. When I first met her, I did anything to get her. Paid all her bills and filled her refrigerator, right? When I first met her, I did anything to get her. The people were reacting crazy. They were reacting crazy for Tony Yayo. She even crashed the whip, trying to switch in the third lane. That's when I realized this bitch was a bird brain, a pigeon, writing her baby's pops in the box, sitting in prison. Sing Sing is where he's bidden. What? Yeah, that's what? Let another blogger read that shit out. Put some respect on my name. She in the what? Finny, what? Baby, what? You're turning Mikey T from principal to Mikey T with debts. That's right. RIP to Stack Bundles, Free Max B. Hell yeah, man. Hell yeah, man. Fake Love. Fake Love, the Tony Yayo song featured on the Get Rich or Die Trying soundtrack. Yeah, Victory, man. Victory, another great one. We're going to be talking about Victory in a minute. Make sure y'all, let's go. Yayo is like, y'all didn't think I was going to come out here. Dudes out here talking too much. Dudes out here talking too much. Yayo's like, dude's been talking too much. So Yayo also came out to perform So Seductive. 50's whole verse on So Seductive was covered up with the go, 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 come on, bounce, come on, bounce. You know what I mean? All that shit that Yayo always be doing. He's a great hype man, y'all. A lot of people say that Tony Yayo was the best hype man since Freaky Ta. And, you know, that's nothing to take as a disrespect. Freaky Ta was one of the most innovative. He was one of the most innovative, man. You know, so I think that's a great comparison right there. Tony Yayo, he's like Diddy to, you know what I mean? He's like the Diddy to Big. You know what I'm saying? He's like the Diddy to Big. Appreciate you tapping in from Detroit. Yeah, we're going to move past that shit, bro. Y'all know I would never do no shit like that. So we're just going to move on past that shit, man. Yep, Jim Jones, like I said a little bit earlier, Extra Money. Jim Jones done proved himself up, made his way up from being known as the side-by-side guy with Cameron. You know what I mean? Kind of doing that whole little thing. Kind of doing that whole little thing that Waka Flocka did. You know what I mean? Kind of doing the whole little thing that Waka Flocka did. Because, you know, when somebody gets locked up, somebody's got to be there to hold it down. Like when Yayo got locked up, Young Buck stepped in to hold it down to keep G-Unit together. Lloyd Banks held up the hunger for more to make sure that Tony Yayo actually got on the album. This team effort actually worked. You know what I mean? The team effort actually worked. A lot of people don't be on that shit. Oh, I'm sorry, man. If my album's going to go, it's going to go. Much love to Boston, y'all. Much love to Boston. Oscar Yayo went platinum. Nobody can talk shit. Bro, it's not really, the game isn't really only about going platinum, though, bro. It's not really only about going platinum, in all honesty, man. The game is about, about going triple platinum. That's right. It's about going triple platinum, baby. You went platinum, that's cool. You went platinum, that's cool. But I'm a triple platinum type of dude. Ain't No Click was good. We're about to get into that in a second. But yeah, Yayo did So Seductive. Yayo is someone who will say anything. You know what I mean? He will say anything no matter where he is. Yayo is just outspoken. You know what I mean? I really wish he would have kept up those antics rather than reeling it in. Dude was all over BET 106 in Park. He was all over TV dissing his ops. You know what I mean? Everybody talks about smoking their ops, okay? How about you be like Tony Yayo and go on television and dish your ops? Never mind smoking. Man, I smoke bud. You know what I'm saying? All that shit about smoking your ops is corny. You know what I mean? That shit is corny. Why don't you go on television like Tony Yayo? Why don't you go on TV, national TV, with AJ and Free? Yeah. Why don't you go on BET Rap City? Why don't you diss one of the rappers whose music video is just about to play on BET 106 in Park? Because Tony Yayo did that type of shit. That's the type of shit that I watched on television. That's the type of shit I watched on television. People out there, they don't remember that. But that's why I'm here on YouTube, to remind y'all. That's why I'm here to remind y'all about the shit that happened. So, Yayo's like, New York City, man. My brother. Lloyd Banks is like, turn me up. Back to the booth again, I guess. New York, make some noise. They want to do a versus. We worldwide with this shit. I'm fresh from Jerusalem. I'm fresh from Jerusalem. You heard, you guys? Tony Yayo literally coming back to New York after being, Yayo is a member of the Passport Gang. Yayo do be traveling, you guys. Yayo be traveling all over. And look what he did for his bro. Look what he did for his bro, Lloyd Banks. He actually made it there. Yeah, so I don't know if the whole G Unit traveled around the world. Yeah, that's why Tony Yayo was saying this shit. You know what I mean? I'm fresh from Jerusalem. Banks is like, y'all ready to do this one time? They performed Straight Out of Southside, which was the #1 track on the Terminate on Sight album. I'm a stormy night. You a rainbow. I'm a stormy night. You a rainbow. Yayo's like, dudes want to take a verses? Dudes want to do a verses? Are you kidding me? Nothing but #1 hits. Dudes want to do a verses. These dudes who literally just lost the verses, like you're saying in the chat. Dudes who literally, you know what, man? Jones, you might want to go at this one with Mano. You might want to do the Lobby Boys. No, man. No, man. Jewels actually has a really great catalog. You know what I mean? I think together they could band together and have a really great thing going on there. Now, what Yayo songs would go on there? We got Bad News. We got So Seductive. We got Pimpin'. We got I Know You Don't Love Me. What else do we got? That's the Way with 50 Cent. I would hope he would perform that. You've got Backseat. Highly doubt he performs that. You got Drama Setter with Eminem. That's right. Yayo's gonna have to make that call to Eminem. But Lloyd Banks can make the call to Snoop. Let me see. Who else does Yayo have? What else does Yayo have on there? I think I just named like 5 or 6 from Yayo, so that'll be good. He's got Fake Love he could do if he really wants to do it. He'd be like, yo, man, y'all say you mess with G Unit, but I know you mess with Dipset. Play my shit. You know what I mean? Play my shit. Fake Love's when your friends give you dap, smiles in your face. Yeah. Fake Love. When your friends turn to enemies, something like that. But then Jim Jones could come back with Frenemies, which was dope. Frenemies. Ooh, I like it, Spawn. Spawn said Lloyd Banks will Jadakiss Jim Jones again. You know, when Jadakiss took his moment, everything just stopped when Jadakiss started performing. You know what I mean? Everything just stopped when 50 Cent, when Jadakiss, I just was reading a comment about 50. When Jadakiss started performing, it was like everything stopped. And it was like, holy shit, Jadakiss just took the MVP for this shit. I would have liked to have seen if Lloyd Banks was up there. I guess the more suitable verses would have been G Unit, 50 Banks and Yayo. You know what I mean? 50 Banks and Yayo versus the Locks. I think that would have been the better in retrospect, because at the beginning I was like, oh shit, Cam, Jim, Jewels, this is going to be a hell of a versus. I was hyped for it. I think y'all know that. I was actually the only one who accidentally chose Dipset to win. I was like accidentally the only one who chose Dipset to win, you guys. James Brown says, I like Dipset as a group, not solo rappers. I mean, no, I'm not there with you, bro. I enjoyed all of them as solo rappers. You know what I mean? Cameron, obviously, making his impact on the game first and, you know what I mean, foremost. You know, he had quite a few albums. Yeah, Mark, I messed up on that one, bro. Don't get at me over that, man. Don't get at me about it. That was in the past. We actually was doing a live video with Dark Low. Yeah, so I might have to actually run that clip again just to show how embarrassing it was. That might be fun. You know what I mean? Because I can laugh at myself. You know what I mean? I can laugh on myself out here. You know what I mean? Yayo had the best production on his debut album. You're going to have to run by some of the producers on me then there, Banky. Rap-A-Lot says, I thought Dipset would win too. You know what I mean? The whole way that Dipset was going about that battle, you know, they were literally filming vignettes. You know what I mean? They were filming little promos about the battle. You know what I mean? And it obviously just shows that they really didn't focus and take it as seriously as, you know what I mean? As seriously as he actually should have, as serious as the Locks did. You know what I mean? And when I say as serious, I mean making sure your time frames are appropriate, making sure the track listing is right, making sure all of you guys are together as a unified front, rather than somebody over here sitting on a chair and somebody over here and somebody over there. You know what I mean? Oh, yeah, that's a good song too, Zick. Yayo's like, dudes want to do a versus? Are you kidding me? Nothing but number one hits. Banks is like, let's take them back to that moment when you got out of jail. Let's take it back to that moment when you got it out of jail. And we all knew. And we all knew what was coming. Banks brought up Ain't No Click, the record that Yayo did when he got out of jail. The record that started off the Hunger for More album. I said it, guys, 440,000 people, or however many, bought this album first week. Tony Yayo was featured on the first track, Uno, Dos, Tres, Cuatros. My clique eats like the 12 holy apostles. Everybody heard that. That is genius marketing from 50 Cent. Genius marketing. Every single person who heard Hunger for More is going to hear Tony Yayo. The only problem was they would have to wait a year. We're talking the end of July 2004. They would have to wait a year before they got Tony Yayo's album. That was the problem. That was the problem, you guys. That's the issue why the sales did not translate. Tony Yayo actually went back in after getting out. Went back to see his PO. He went back to see his PO, and his PO was like, what's up with this? What am I looking at right here? Why am I looking at your brother's passport? He's like, oh man, I just mixed those up. Let me look at the picture here. You know, you look like him a lot. Do you think I was born yesterday? I was born at night, but not last night. You've been using your brother's passport, haven't you? You've been using your brother's passport to travel to Barcelona and Brazil. This shit's real. Effing appeal. Trick wants my head like that bitch in Kill Bill. Right? All right. Yep. You already know, upstate, we standing strong. Ain't nobody stopping Mike T. Ain't nobody. Only a casket. You know what? I'm going to be doing this shit till I'm 90 years old, like Snoop and Dre. Like Snoop and Dre said, we doing this shit till the casket drops. We're going to be out performing on stages in wheelchairs, crutches, all that shit. This shit ain't going to stop. Hip-hop goes on forever. Hip-hop goes on forever. This shit's real. Effing appeal. That's right. Biggs 1984 says Jim Jones' first album On the Way to Church was trash. If Tony never got knocked, his album would have done way better. G Unit way better than Dipset. Appreciate your comment, Biggs. You know what I mean? I think Jim Jones's projects really got better as he went along. You know what I mean? Jim Jones's reputation started to grow, you know, from being an independent artist to the point where they couldn't help but want to sign multiple deals with him. You know, that's just the way that I saw it. Debo says Jim Jones is better than Yayo, bro. Way better. Jim is spitting hard right now. Jim Jones has records right now. That's undeniable. Jim Jones has Slide right now. You know what I mean? And that's not the only one. He has records with Young Blue. You know what I mean? Blue. So he's got records right now, man. You can't deny that. So Yayo comes on. Ain't no click like the one I'm with. G-Unit is running the shit. We getting dough everywhere we go. Yeah, that was when Yayo came home. And they took him right back. You know? Yayo comes on. Uno, dos, tres, cuatros. My clique eats like the 12 holy apostles. I'm bust down models and bust down Tahoes. Jules froze look like we hit the lotto. Yayo's like, F is wrong with these dudes. What the F is wrong with these dudes? What's wrong with these dudes? I'm back on my shit. No more humble shit. I hate these industry dudes. I hate these industry dudes. Banks is like, watch this, watch this. Bring it down, bring it down. Can I hear the ladies? Can I hear the ladies make some noise? Can I hear the ladies make some noise one time? Let's do something for the ladies. Let's do something for the ladies. Yeah, we on that vintage today. We on that vintage today, man. We on that vintage shit today. Real shit. Much love to Detroit. Send my love to Detroit. Y'all are going to see, man. About to sign a real big deal on your asses. And then we go into the top. They about to call me L.A. Mikey. We're about to switch the initials. It's not going to be Mikey T no more. It's going to be Mikey L.A. G-Unit made more success, more music, more money, more awards than Dipset. Well, Bishop, let's take a look at the two G-Unit albums compared to the two Dipset albums. G-Unit's first album, classic. I don't put nothing up against that shit. There's nothing you can put up against it. Who did better sales-wise? Maybe the Outlaws after Tupac passed away. Yeah, they sold more. You know what I mean? But G-Unit as a whole, yeah, they took out Dipset in the first album, but Dipset's second album was way better than Terminate on Sight. So that's my evaluation on that. The Diplomatic Immunity 2 is better than Terminate on Sight. So there's really more of an evaluation. There's really more of an evaluation you need to make with the Dipset and the G-Unit catalogs. Come on, Wallace. Don't act like 50 Cent wasn't getting called Curtis. And who doesn't remember about Tony Yayo? Boring. No, it's ballin'. No, boring. People act like they don't remember. People don't act like they don't remember the static with Hell Rel and Tony Yayo. When Hell Rel got out of jail and it was sort of the same marketing plan as Tony Yayo. Oh, he just got out. He's going to release a Dipset album. Okay. All right. Didn't we just get that whole marketing plan through Tony Yayo? But this is not the major label guy who got out of jail album. This is the independent Koch Records guy who got a jail album. Oh, come on, dude. Get out of my live, bro. Dude's probably 26 years old, doesn't really know the history. Yo, go look at the last Outlaws album on Death Row Records and tell me how much it sold. Ooh. Next says Dipset might win a fashion show. They're not winning a Verzuz, period. Hey, man, well, we ran over Jim Jones's records the other night, and Jim Jones has 20 to go up against Lloyd Banks. So if we add in Jewels, if you do a tag team one, maybe you need to do like a 30 tracks, though. If you do a tag team, you guys, I'm just trying to expand on the rules here. You know what I mean? G-Unit music is more timeless than Dipset. Come on, man. The Dipset anthem, I don't think, you know what I mean? I don't think that G-Unit has anything more timeless. And that's just judging based on a song. Because, the way that 50 released the 3 singles from Beg for Mercy was just classic. When we got Stunt 101, when he got Poppin' Them Things, and when we got I Want to Get to Know You. Dipset didn't have that same momentum with their album. Yo, what up? Is that Jaffe? Salute Jaffe, man. That's my guy right there. If that's the real Jaffe. Good to see you home and doing your thing, man. That new record you put out was dope as well. Put that link in the chat if you can, Jaffe, so I can pin it up. That's right. You got a dope-ass flow, Jaffe, so it's great to see you doing some music. No, bro. Peter, we went over Jim Jones's records the other night, bro. We went over Jim Jones's records the other night. Jim Jones does have 20 records to compete with Lloyd Banks. Everything's good, Jaffe. Everybody go follow Jaffe on YouTube, y'all. I'm going to pin up Jaffe's IG, or not his IG, but his YouTube, so y'all can click on that and go subscribe to Jaffe on YouTube, man. Welcome home, bro. I know it's been a little minute, but this is really the first time I ever got to say it on camera. So welcome home, Jaffe. And it's great to see you putting in that work, man. Whenever you need a platform to talk, my G, this platform is open to you. Acrylic record sales. We all know Lloyd Banks has always sold more than Jim and Jewels. We can't really base it on the record sales. Hell yeah, man. That's going to be a fire interview too. We can't really base it on the record sales because even Tony Yayo has sold 215,000 records first week. Even Tony Yayo has sold 215,000 records first week. Look at Jim Jones' first week sales. Look at the first week sales. He has not gotten nearly 200,000 first week, even when he went over onto a mainstream platform from Koch Records, you guys. So we're not basing this on the amount of sales. We're basing this simply on the record choice. The record placement. Now, Jewels, I went over his records the other night too. I was a little bit tired, but we still managed to get about 10 records without even 7 or 8, without even diving into the Lil Wayne history. So let's be real on that. So Banks is like, let's do something for the ladies. And that's when Karma played. Lloyd Banks' most well-known record. Yayo was ready to get back. Yayo was doing his thing as the hype man, and it seemed like he actually was calmed down at this point. You know what I mean? Yayo had just gone in a few minutes ago. You know what I mean? F is wrong with these dudes. I'm back on my shit. No more humble shit. I hate these industry dudes. Yayo was hyped up for a second there, man. Because when you get some of these dudes, yo, Iceberg, can you post up Jaffe's Instagram for me so I can pin it? When you get at these dudes and then you see them on the different shows, the Joe Budden Podcast, and then you got people on the podcast actually go, oh yeah, Jim Jones will roast Lloyd Banks. First of all, it wouldn't be a roast. If anything, it would be a really good competition. You know what I mean? I'm not here riding either of the guys, man. I went over both yesterday. So at this point, I really can't until I write down both of the tracks side by side. Because I went over it, you guys, and they both have 20, man. They both have 20. I don't want to. Somebody send in a super chat right now, and I'll go over all the records again. But so Karma played. This to me is Lloyd Banks' most well-known record. Banks is like, if you've been effing with Lloyd Banks since 2001, and I want everybody in the chat to let me know too. If you've been messing with Lloyd Banks since 2001, 2002, make some noise. I want to take them back to the record that got me out of the hood. And I immediately knew what was about to play. Yayo's like, what we doing? Banks then put on Fire from The Hunger for More, Lloyd Banks' first single. Unless you want to consider his first records, because look what we would do in a verses for Lloyd Banks. You've got Stunt 101, Popping Them Things, Wanna Get to Know Ya. And then he had his own solo record on Beg for Mercy called Smile. That's 4 records right there between the first group album. Then you've got his second album. Then you got his first album. You've got On Fire, Warrior, I'm So Fly, Karma. We're already up to 8 Lloyd Banks records, you guys. We're already up to 8 Lloyd Banks records. Let's move on. After that. We get the Get Rich or Die Trying soundtrack, Get Low from Lloyd Banks. Moving on from there. What do we got after the Get Rich or Die Trying soundtrack? We get back to Lloyd Banks' album in 2006, The Rotten Apple, where we get Cake, we get Hands Up, we get Survival, which I would throw on there. What else do we have on there? We had Help with Carrie Hilson. From there, we get Rider, I Like the Way She Do It on the Terminate on Sight album. Then Lloyd Banks' next album, Hunger for More 2, Start It Up, Beamer, Benz, or Bentley, I Don't Deserve You, Any Girl with Lloyd. We're at 19 records, you guys. We're at 19 records right now for Lloyd Banks and a Verzuz Battle. And then we could throw in, I Like It, Work Magic. I work magic and make you disappear. Wasn't that? Yeah. Nobody around here scared. I'm heading to the top, and I'm almost there. Hell yeah. Nobody around here scared. Nobody's scared of an ass whooping. Nobody's scared to get put down on the ground. Nobody's scared of that shit. That shit don't faze me. That shit's been happening since I was like 8, 9 years old. So please miss me with that shit. Classic right there, man. I make magic. That's a what was Work Magic on? That was on it was the Young Buck record. It wasn't on his first album, was it? I'm sorry, you guys. We got Warrior Remix with Eminem and Nate Dogg. Come on, this is too serious. Yep, Don't Push Me. The Victory freestyle. Yep. Hunger for More 1. That was on Cashville, bro. All right. You guys want to go over Jim Jones? You guys want to do Jim Jones? Okay. Y'all are trying to play with Jim Jones. So we're going to get started. Jim Jones's first album, right? Jim Jones's first album. Get to this list right here, you guys. Excuse me. Bear with me, y'all. Bear with me. We're taking a little sidetrack. Just so y'all can see we know hip-hop history. With Lloyd Banks, them joints just run off the, you know what I mean? They just run off the tongue. Let me get onto this, man. You got to go to the Jim Jones rapper. You got to type in Jim Jones rapper. So look what we got. On My Way to Church, 2004. He gets started nearly the same year as Lloyd Banks. His album comes out a month after Lloyd Banks' debut album. So we've got Certified Gangsters and we've got Crunk Music. He could even bring out the game. He could even bring out the game for Certified Gangsters, you guys. He literally can even bring out the game for that. Then we move on to his second album, Harlem Diary of a Summer. We've got Baby Girl, Summer with Miami, What You Been Drinking On. Also, we've got G's Up with Max B. What else do we got on here? And we've also got no, I'm not going to put that on there. I'm not going to put that on there. Nope. So we're up to 6. We're up to 6 records. Now we're on his third album. We Fly High, Emotionless, Reppin' Time. So that's 9 records right now for Jim Jones. Don't Forget About Me with Max B. That makes 10. Where are we going from here? Pray for Rain, part 4. Pray for Rain, not part 4. They just made the 4. So we've got Pop Champagne, Na 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 Na, Precious, Frenemies, which I mentioned a little bit earlier. Let's move on. We're at 14 tracks right now for Jim Jones. We're on to his next album, The Rooftop. Dancing on Me. She Can Get It. We Set the Trends with the Migos, Lil Wayne. Then we got Slide with Mano. We got Slide with Mano. We've got that record with Kid Cudi, Day and Night. That's 19 records right there, you guys. That's 19 records right there, y'all. And then what else can we put? Everyday Jones, Nasty Girl, Perfect Day. You know what I mean? That's Weatherman. Yes, I missed Weatherman, bro. I missed Weatherman. Boom. 20 records right there, you guys. 20 records with Max. Max B was on quite a few. What do y'all think? See, I'm not on here capping, y'all. Nah, man. Max B's records with Jim Jones, G's Up. Are you telling me G's Up is forgettable? And I think a couple of those records with Max B and Stack Bundles could go as well. Cap, you guys. Cap, I just listed 20 Jim Jones songs. So don't tell me I'm just bullshitting, man. Those Max B songs, Don't Forget About Me, that shit is going up there, man. Reppin' Time, that shit is going up there. Emotionless, that shit is going up there. We Set the Trends, it's going up there. Slide, let's just be realistic about this, you guys. Well, I named all Lloyd Banks' songs, so if somebody wrote them out, you could basically see. None of the records with Max B were forgettable. But let's get back into this. Lloyd Banks, you're now rocking with the best. Lloyd Banks. Yeah, that was actually the intro. That's why I wrote that down. Yeah, Banks was postponed for the top spot, and he literally got it that year. You know? Lloyd Banks postponed his album, you guys. Lloyd Banks legitimately postponed his album to get Tony Yayo on it, and we actually got to hear him on it. You know what I mean? That's a blessing for Yayo. It opened him up to such a fan base. It went hand in hand with what Eminem did for him at the Grammys. You know, Banks is like, I ain't doing nothing. I smoke when I wanna. Interesting lyric considering Lloyd Banks has decided to put down the Chronic. You know, Banks was just like the biggest smoker in the game. It's like Banks was like a mixture of like 50 and Snoop Dogg. Maybe you got to throw a little Fabulous in there too, though. You know what I mean? Just because he hits so hard with those bars and shit. But yeah, he was like Snoop. the smoking compared to 50, who wasn't really all about smoking like that. Banks had the Cody 2 shirt on, the Course of the Inevitable 2. It's available now if you guys want to go cop that. He was on there. He was wearing that shirt to support his new album. He performed on Fire, which was, he famously said, I'm on fire. He's like, I'm only 21 sitting on mills. Banks has obviously retained quite a bit of his fans when it comes to performing because his shows are always packed. Yayo comes back on. He's like, shout out to Eminem. Shout out to 50. Shout out to Banks. Worldwide shit. Worldwide shit. What we doing, Banks? You got hits. What we doing, Banks? Banks is like, I want to show these dudes how important the underground mixtapes are. How many of y'all F with the Cold Corner Part 2? Can I tap into that for a while? Someone in the crowd literally yelled out, do all of it! Perform all of it! Wow. These people love Lloyd Banks, man. These people love the classic material. Even though we've only got 5 official Lloyd Banks albums, do you realize how many mixtapes he's put out? Lloyd Banks has seriously changed the way an artist works in the game. Lloyd Banks has to be the reason why these guys like French Montana, these guys like Max B were so apt to want to go out there and put out mixtape after mixtape after mixtape after mixtape and never give up doing it. Guys is having like 20 mixtapes and shit like that. So Banks is like, he went into his little thing before he performed Make a Stack. I realized it was probably what he does when he goes around performing. He's like, if you got $100 bill in your pocket, put your hands up. If you got $100 bill in your pocket, put your hands up. If you got 200, and at this point I realized he wasn't doing that old thing with the Fat Man Scoop thing. I thought he was about to do, you got $100 bill, put your hands up. Put your hands up. You got you got a $20 bill, put your hands up. Yeah, I thought he was about to break into that. It was about to take me back to the day. You know what I mean? I was about to be live with it. What, Banks? You fit to get into this? True story. I used to think Fat Man Scoop was Ja Rule. Back in the day when Ja Rule had his chick records, I was like, yo, that's raw that Ja Rule would do something this gutter while he has all these chick records out. That he would do this shit of, you got a $50 bill, put your hands up. You know what I mean? I thought that was cool as hell. Then I realized it was actually Fat Man Scoop. So Banks is like, if you got $200 in your pocket, put your hands up. If you got $500 in your pocket, put your hands up. Lloyd Banks then came on with the song Make a Stack. He's like, I'm trying to buy my soul from Satan. I can't keep up with the payments. Strained writings on the wall got me feeling like a caveman. Call the shit like days in. Life is so degrading. But to my last statement, I keep praying till it's amen. Lloyd Banks is too gutter, man. Lloyd Banks is too gutter, man. He's got records for the streets. He's got records for the ladies. Like I was talking, Karma. He's got a record, Karma. You know what I mean? Probably his biggest record to me. Banks had actually said in an interview he's heard some drill rappers actually doing something with Karma. Banks is like, shout out to all of y'all in the back. Shout out to all of y'all in the back. And I want to shout out to all of y'all in the back, in the chat, hitting the like button, leaving a comment. Shout out to y'all in the back. I hear y'all in the back, man. I hear y'all in the back. Make up your mind, guys. We need the D Block versus the Unit versus. Well, bro, I want to see another Jadakiss solo joint. I want to see a Jadakiss solo joint. I want to see Jim Jones and Jewels possibly team up and do something new. You know what I mean? Keep them together. Let them both potentially get their win back. So Banks is like, shout out to y'all in the back. I'm feeling like the energy is back there. Sound man, get me right. Well, I mean, I guess Banks knows what good sound is like at his shows. He's done so many of them, you know, doing shows with 50, doing shows on his own. You know what I'm saying? He literally was doing shows as a group artist and as a solo artist. That's how much Lloyd Banks could get booking. Y'all can hear me back there. Check this out. If you don't, it's cool though. Chill back and listen. But for everybody that's been following Lloyd Banks, since I'm talking about the best of Lloyd Banks days, if you got that 50 Cent is the future mixtape, make some noise. Let's take them back to that. The 50 Cent is the future mixtape. Interesting. He was actually just talking about that in one of his recent interviews. So Banks was then about to break into the Banks workout. That's right. Classic Banks workout. I don't know how much of this mixtape stuff would get used in the verses. You know what I mean? I don't know how much of this stuff would actually get used in the verses. Yep, the 134 All-Stars tape, one of the first places that Lloyd Banks got a lot of his recognition. That's right. But Lloyd Banks was doing other things, as he said. He was actually performing at his school. 50 Cent headlined the performance at his school. Lloyd Banks was taking all different types of measures, you know, to get his talent out there, to get recognized for what he can do. Some people go on love shows that air on whatever channel they air on, like the Change of Heart show that the Game did. You know what I mean? But some people just try to focus on the talent. You know what I mean? Some people just try to focus on the talent. Yeah. Yeah, there ain't nothing wrong, Pete. I agree with you, Peter. I agree with you 100%. Let's shout out Jim Jones and Joel Santana for throwing Banks an alley-oop by hyping him up and mentioning his name, knowing he has an album coming out to stir up a little healthy competition. Yep, that's a great point you're putting out there. And plus, I'm hearing rumors that Joel Santana and Jim Jones are going to be doing an album together as well. How dope would that be if they actually put out an album together? Been hearing a little bit of rumbling about it. Is any label? I mean, obviously Empire would probably put it out. Empire always puts out dope shit. Empire always gives people an opportunity to put out music that needs to be heard. Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Rest in peace to Fat Shah for sure, man. Yep. 100%, man. You got to always shout out the OGs who really put forth the effort to create a vision. You know what I mean? Sometimes people will be talking about shit, you know, I'm going to do this, I'm going to put this series together, this and that. You know, you got to salute the ones who actually go from talking about it to putting it into existence. I hope somebody does cover this event, to be honest with you. I hope somebody does put up the bread. I mean, it would be honestly, the best scenario would be to be on Verzuz. You know what I mean? But I think Swizz Beatz, you know what I mean? I think Swizz Beatz and Timbo would probably be like, yo, man, if we're going to do it, we got to go all the way with it. Second of all, Dipset didn't win the battle with the Locks. You know what I mean? So why would it be Dipset going against G-Unit if they were going to do the whole thing? You know what I mean? That's why I think it should be something different. But, you know, I've been hearing all this shit about the Verzuz battle that happened with Onyx, you know, in Cypress Hill, and how it was actually put on some sort of an event that you had to order or something like that. I heard the guys talking about it. There's a lot of different options as to where this can go. You know what I mean? I think there's a lot of fans that would be appeased by it. But I think the heads at Verzuz would probably just be like, yo, if we're going to go all the way with this, we really should go all the way with it. We shouldn't go half-assed with it. Why would we not just do what the people really wanted to see? Why wouldn't we have 50 Cent involved? Why wouldn't Cameron be involved? Or why wouldn't it just be G-Unit versus the Locks? You know? But then again, I combated that point because 50 earlier in his career, a few years ago, said that he wouldn't do a Verzuz battle. You know what I mean? So what are you going to do? You're just going to leave money on the table? No, I want to see something happen, man. Unless from Yayo's like, are you watching? Are y'all watching? Banks is like, these dudes don't really want war. They just walk around fronting because I walk around stunting. Why you think the long pump is in the trunk for? What you think the long pump is in the trunk for? If you really want something, we can show up at the front door. Banks with his Banks. Y'all make some noise. Y'all make some noise for 50 Cent putting us here today. Y'all make some noise with 50 Cent putting us here today. Yeah, it was like, yeah. Shout out to 50. Shout out to Eminem, Dr. Dre. You know what I mean? You know we the bad guys of this shit. What we doing? Banks is like, y'all ready to go home? Crowd's like, no. Y'all want to stay in the mixtape bag? So then Yayo's like, yeah, let's do that. Shout out to the bootleggers too. The New York City bootleggers. Banks is like, yeah, what y'all want to hear? You said what? And at this point, the victory freestyle was coming up. Yayo was like, I know what I want to hear. Banks is like, let's go. Let's remind these guys how it started and why I'm an animal. Yayo's like, New York City, you're rocking with the best. G-Unit. I used to be able to get the Yayo G-Unit voice down so well. Worldwide, all the world over, not local. I mean, I'm not saying Dipset is local. Dipset is local? Well, I mean, shit, let's explore the term local. When you're not able to tour overseas, when you're only able to tour domestically. Fact of the matter is, Joel Santana has always been in a few different situations. Joel Santana has always been in a few different situations that may or may not have prevented him from traveling outside of the country. When you're not able to travel outside of the country, your name does not gain as much value. That's why 50 Cent was taking G-Unit to Europe. That's why he was taking them to Asia. You know what I mean? That's why he took them overseas, to build the value of their name. Slizzy, what's up? Yeah, Banks had a lot of different freestyles. You know, the victory freestyle, obviously crazy. You know, G-Unit move around with them pounds and Berettas. You know, the people go crazy when Lloyd Banks performs and does the victory freestyle, y'all. My bro Clark is actually out right now at the Rollin' Loud event. My bro's actually at Rollin' Loud right now. He's actually at Rollin' Loud right now doing his thing in Miami. It's actually at the Hard Rock Casino today, I believe. That's crazy. I used to love going to that casino out in like Hollywood. That's out in Hollywood, Florida. Not Hollywood, California. Hollywood, Florida, y'all. Let me see here. But victory is just a dope joint you could play when you're trying to get amped up. You also play it when you're trying to introduce one of your friends to like Lloyd Banks. Like, yo, no. You got to listen to this Lloyd Banks shit. You're going to mess with it. Yayo was like, F is wrong with these dudes. It's been 20 years. What the F is wrong with these dudes? It's been 20 years about, and we still hot. New York City. What's up? We got more hits. What we doing? What you doing? Banks is like, if you got love for Lloyd Banks and Tony Yayo, put your hands up. If you got love for Lloyd Banks and Tony Yayo, put a thumbs up in the chat. Every hood we go through, all the gangsters around, all my whole crew, we hold it down like we supposed to. You can front if you want, but we popping them things. That's what came on next. The second single from the G Unit album, the one that followed Stunt 101. So just like I was saying how Banks would utilize these in his verses, Stunt 101, popping them things, I want to get to know you, Smile. He's got 4 records easily. He also goes on to perform Eye for an Eye. We hold it down like we supposed to. So that was the second single from Beg for Mercy. Yayo wasn't actually featured on this song. Buck mentioned Game's name. You ain't a Crip like Snoop. You ain't a blood like you ain't a Crip like Snoop. You ain't a blood like Game. I think this song would be used in any verses that they did. You know, they did the hook real quick, and then Banks had a verse. Banks was like, if you got the first G Unit album, make some noise. Banks then went in on Eye for an Eye, another song that didn't feature Yayo. Obviously, Yayo was only featured on a few of the tracks, 2 actually. Plus, he did a freestyle for My Buddy that actually dropped. Where did that drop, you guys? On a DVD set or something like that? With an animated, I think there was an animated video for My Buddy as well. So maybe My Buddy would even be on Lloyd Banks's verses. You're right about that. I agree with you about that. The Beg for Mercy album cannot be topped by any of the Dipset albums. But I would have to say both of the Dipset albums top Terminate on Sight. You know what I'm saying? So Banks went on, you know, Eye for an Eye. They Can't Hold Me. Lloyd Banks, the one and only. That's just, they did a quick little hook for it. Just to remind y'all what that joint was. Banks is like, how many of y'all finished school? And I want to give a major shout out to China Mac and G's Gasoline. They were actually doing a back to school drive. I believe it's in Georgia. So salute to China Mac and G's Gasoline for giving back to the community. Those guys are real ones. I saw it on their Instagram. I be following my guys, y'all. I be following my guys. I be staying in tune with what they're doing, and I'm saluting you based on what you're doing, man. Major respect to G's Gasoline and China Mac. Oh, yeah, DJ Spawn, that's another good one right there. The Touch It remix, Lloyd Banks, Touch It remix. I mean, if he's going to do, maybe if he brings out Busta Rhymes, right? But there's a number of people he could actually bring out for the Touch It remix. Like if he really wanted to get crazy with it, Lloyd Banks could just start bringing out everybody that was on the Touch It remix. That'd be nuts. That'd actually be crazy if he did that. I think that would be dope if he actually did that. Let me see where we at with this. After that, Banks is like, we got any high school or college graduates in here. Me and this dude didn't do that. We might not be the smartest in here, but we will teach you how to stunt. And there we go. Stunt 101 played, man. Stunt 101 played. Another great G Unit classic. Banks is like, I'm just running through to see how much shit is here. Are y'all having a good time? Oh, man. This is majorly nostalgic, but also Lloyd Banks has performed cuts that I never heard him perform actually on stage. And also he's performing cuts from his newest albums, The Course of the Inevitable 1, The Course of the Inevitable 2. So we're getting a great mix here, you know? So y'all ready to turn up or not, Banks is saying. He's like, hold on, let me take this shit off because this shit don't matter. I think at this point, Banks was actually taking his chain off. He's like, are y'all having a good time tonight? If you take care of your kids, put your hands up. Put your hands up in the air. Y'all spent some hard-earned money to get in here. Y'all love real hip-hop. Y'all love Lloyd Banks. The crowd is like, yeah, to everything he's saying. You know what I mean? But it's just progressively getting louder. Y'all love Tony Yayo? Yeah. Tony Yayo's like, thank you. I love you too. Yayo's like, this is when we started making number one hits. That's what I believe Tony Yayo said. Then Yayo's like, put your hands up. Number one hits. Lloyd Banks started performing, started up before asking for some water. And then he asked the fans if they were tired. Banks is like, I shouldn't see one hand down. I just dropped an album 2 years straight. I want to see everybody's hands up. People are gonna watch this on YouTube and all that. Let's get it one more time. So Banks got himself some water. Obviously, this Started Up record is a real turn up joint. So he wanted to make sure he was ready. That was pretty lit when they actually performed Started Up. I was like, wow, this song live, it's so much better to me to watch it live. Some records are actually just better watching live. You know what I mean? When I heard Started Up back in the day, you know what I mean? I wasn't really so much into it. I was more into Beamer, Benz, or Bentley. I was more into I Don't Deserve You rather than the Any Girl and the record right here that we're talking about. You know, it Started Up. I was more into those records, just to be 100 with you guys. Hate It or Love It remix. I mean, shit, that's another one. You know what I mean? The Hate It or Love It remix that was featured on the Massacre album. Pretty cool move by 50 Cent, I got to say, to actually feature the remix on his album that dropped like a month and a half later. So Started Up, played again. Banks is like, first of all, hold up, calm down, break it down. All that weed can't be za. What? You're fitting to go in on everybody's weed right now? Oh my God, this dude's fitting to go in on everybody's weed. Yo, that shit can't be za. The shit you're talking about, some of the shit y'all smoking is some bullshit. Please don't bring the bullshit. Bring your best weed. Don't bring the bullshit. Bring your best weed. Yeah. Yep. Karma. Yeah, we mentioned that, bro. Pretty sure I said Karma. Hopefully I didn't miss Karma. Jesus. I should have definitely been on the list. But we came up with 20 for both artists pretty quickly. We came up with 20 for Lloyd Banks pretty quickly. We need Cassidy to break down the science. Cassidy and Lloyd Banks would be an awesome versus too. Avery, I said Warrior Part 1 and 2 as well, but honestly, you got to break it down to just be one. You know what I mean? You got to break it down to just be one. You can't really do both in that one. I wouldn't think he would do both of, but I think he should do the Warrior remix with Nate Dogg. You know what I mean? I think he should do with Eminem. I think that would be the better one. I think that honestly would be the better way to go for that. But I think Warrior obviously needs to be played. The Dips can't touch G Unit. The Dips can't touch G Unit. No, I came up with 20 for Jim Jones, man. Come on, I came up with 20 for Jim Jones. Let's not do that. Let's not do that, man. I spent my time on the podcast. You're watching the Mikey T, the Movie Star podcast right now. I spent my time on the podcast breaking down the songs. So it's like Banks asked, like, he's like, please don't bring the bullshit. Bring your best weed. We all know Banks was a big smoker back in the day. Check this out. What you say? He started talking to a fan. He said he wanted to hear South Side Story. South Side Story off of Lloyd Banks' album. You know what I mean? That shit was crazy. That was a crazy joint. But at this point, Banks is off the weed, apparently. At this point, Banks hasn't really smoked in years. You know what I mean? Which is nuts to me. Banks used to smoke as much as Snoop Dogg. You know, like I said earlier, Banks would be kind of like a mix. Banks would kind of be like a mix of Snoop, 50, and Fab. You know what I mean? But Banks is showing a whole lot of love to Yayo here, which is dope. You got to love it when Yayo gets that love. You know what I mean? Yayo came out and everybody erupted. You know what I mean? Yayo came out and everybody erupted. Banks is like, make some noise for Tony Yayo. Make some noise for Tony Yayo. And the people made a whole lot of noise when he came out at first. You know what I mean? And Yayo's like, I got to do one thing. This was crazy. This is crazy. This is crazy because Yayo's like, I got to do one thing. And at that point, I know you don't love me. I know you don't love me started playing. You ain't the same whenever Jay-Z's around. You ain't the same. You're screaming, hollering when Eminem's in town. I know you don't love me. I know you don't love Mike T. You ain't the same, but you got the live popping right now. I know you don't love me. 50 Banks, Buck, they were all on this record. The whole G Unit, you know what I mean? The whole G Unit was on this record. I know you don't love me. Yayo comes on. It's the Brick Copper, the Ounce Chopper, the 745 NASCAR driver that's known to spit lava. What did he say? He said some other shit. I'm in the airplane with some shit, man. I didn't look up all the lyrics, man. I didn't look up all the lyrics. That's known to spit lava. You know, a lot of people love the record. I know you don't love me. A lot of people say they love the record. I want to put up another poll. I want to do another poll right now, and I'll look at the results from the last one. I want to do a poll, Tony Yayo's best single. I want to know, what do you think was his best single? Because my boy RBH always told me, you guys, he was like, yo, honestly, I feel like they should have started off Tony Yayo's album push. I feel like they should have started off Tony Yayo's album push with I Know You Don't Love Me. That's legitimately what he said to me, you guys. He was like, honestly, and everybody in here, subscribe to the channel if you haven't. He said that he thinks they should have started out with the G Unit push as his first release. Everybody vote in the poll right now. Vote in that poll right now, you guys. If you haven't, vote in the poll right now. I want to know, what was your favorite Tony Yayo single? I'm actually putting up a whole nother poll on my actual YouTube page. Very interested to see. Very interested to see. RBH Knows What's Up. That song is legendary. That's crazy. Yeah, a lot of people rock with that. I Know You Don't Love Me. You know, you ain't the same whenever Jay-Z's in town. I Know You Don't Love Me. A lot of people love the record, like I said, you know, and I told you all, my associate RBH always told me that it should have been the first single off of Thoughts of a Predicate Felon. All the G-Unit artists would have helped it generate more sales. Banks comes on there, F Pressure, I Enter the Ring Calm. Yeah, it's like, this shit is too easy. This shit is too easy. These industry dudes be hating. The industry dudes be hating. I know what to do. You said smooth it out, Lloyd Banks is saying. Can we do something else for the ladies? Let's make them smile. Lloyd Banks started performing Smile. And then Yayo's like, let's take them to the beginning. Lloyd Banks' first single, his first solo cut released on the album Beg for Mercy was Smile. They even did a music video for it. Yep. They even did a music video for it, you guys. So once they dropped Smile, it was pretty evident the way they were going with Lloyd Banks, y'all. It was pretty evident the way they were going with Lloyd Banks when he dropped Smile. You know, Ja Rule had to do something similar when he was around DMX and Jay-Z. Ja Rule had to find a way to stand out. Banks was around Buck and 50, who were known as the street elements of G-Unit at that point in time. Yayo was coming home, and he was the one who put the G in G-Unit. You know, he would go on to release his own Smile type record, though, with Curious, another record that I actually really enjoy. Curious, actually, I like more than Smile, just to be real. Some people say maybe it was a little bit too early for Yayo to be releasing Curious. Some people even say the same thing about So Seductive. Other people say So Seductive is one of the best, if not the best, G-Unit song released out of all of their albums. Everybody has their opinion, man. You know what I mean? Personally, I felt Tony Yayo was the best when they were all three together rapping on all the mixtapes back in the day. Just opinions. When you go back and you listen to the material, you form an opinion. Sometimes that music just isn't really on your radar, though. You know what I mean? Sometimes that music isn't on your radar. A lot of people, obviously people knew about Jadakiss, and you know what I mean? We were repping with DMX and Jay-Z and all these guys before 50 really got his come up and was able to bring up all those hard spitters from Queens. What? Merritt says, I was just bumping Curious on my way back from New Jersey today. The trio was nasty, all NYC. Yeah, that trio was amazing. Seeing all those guys actually together. You know what I mean? But then when Buck came onto the scene, like, I ain't going to front. When Buck came onto the scene, you guys, I was all for it. You know what I mean? I really felt like Young Buck brought it together. You know what I mean? I really felt like Young Buck brought that shit together when he joined the group and really gave them a Southern influence. I was like, oh, shit. This shit is about to translate. This shit is about to translate right here. And it did. You guys. And that shit did translate. Young Buck fit right in. Who would have thought Young Buck on G-Unit would have been something that you would have bought? You know what I'm saying? Young Buck actually came in and he fit the whole image together of G-Unit. He kind of made it better than it already was, man. I got a lot of respect for Young Buck in that essence. You know what I mean? I got a lot of respect for Young Buck in that essence, you guys. Young Buck really came into the scene, and actually made G-Unit, to me, a more prominent faction. You know what I mean? Made G-Unit a more prominent faction to me. There we go. There we go. Yeah. Vote in that poll right now if you haven't, you guys. Vote in that poll right now if you haven't. But yeah, man, I came on here today to break down this Lloyd Banks performance in full. I don't think nobody else on YouTube has broken down the Lloyd Banks performance in full like this. This is pretty much the first time I think a live performance has ever been broken down. So I don't want to hear that shit, to be 100% honest with you, man. I don't want to hear that shit, to be 100% honest with you, man. If I gotta hear about that shit, I'm gonna call no. I'm gonna call that as a big no. Nobody is covering this Lloyd Banks topic like me. I'm sorry, y'all can go over a little bit of it, but I'm going over the whole thing. You know what I mean? Literally track by track. You can create a mixtape, a Lloyd Banks mixtape off of what I'm doing right now. I'm literally listing out every single, you know what I mean? I'm literally listing out every single track that these dudes performed. You know what I'm saying? All due respect to anybody else covering this topic, but nobody else is covering this shit like I'm covering this shit. Because all respect to MREC, all respect to Jordan Tower, whoever's covering this topic. You know what I'm saying? But ask or go watch the video. You're not going to get the same breakdown as I'm giving you right now, track for track. You know what I'm saying? You're not getting the same breakdown as I'm giving you track for track. That's what makes me a little bit different. A lot of people just want to, go around it. I'm coming right at you. I'm telling you what I thought. I'm telling you what I saw. And also, I'm taking comments from everybody too. You know what I'm saying? Limited comments. Thank you, Amirit. Nobody is covering it like the movie star. We're about to have movie star chains. You know what I'm saying? We're about to have movie star chains, so don't get it twisted. You know what I mean? And plus, MREC covering this on his channel last night, he did his thing. You know what I mean? MREC has his own style. People call in. I have my own style. Please don't try to compare me with none of these dudes. Everybody has their own style. Doggy Diamonds has several different show styles. What? Next thing you know, I come on here with a co-host. Now I'm stealing Doggy Diamond style. You know what I mean? Like, come on, miss me with that shit, man. I'm on here covering a live performance, track by track. I'm getting really intricate with it. You know what I mean? I'm being very intricate with what I'm doing right here. Nobody else is doing that. That's why I'm separating myself from everybody else. That's why I'm getting noticed. That's why I'm getting my attention, because I'm doing it and covering it my own way. That's what makes a blogger interesting. That's what makes a blogger interesting. That's what makes an online experience interesting. Rich, I don't know about that, man. Honestly, I pitched it as far as Dipset coming back. I said we need the Dipset movie to be followed up by a official. We need the Dipset movie to be followed up by an official and the third Dipset album, Diplomatic Immunity 3. Thanks, bro. I appreciate that, man. I appreciate that, bro. A while ago, bro. That shit's been over, bro. I wish I could have went to this show. I wish I could have went to the Lloyd Banks show in February, but obviously sometimes when shows are happening in New York, you don't really hear about it here in Connecticut because nobody expects you to make a drive for like 2 hours to go to somebody's show. You know what I mean? People don't really expect you to do that. Last time I saw Lloyd Banks was actually here in Connecticut. I'm going to listen to my boy Pete right here. When you read the comments, you take it like the barber shop too. Oh, I like that, bro. You know what I mean? Just like Matt Hoffa has his show going like that barber shop atmosphere. You don't get emotional and take it like we trying to diss. I like that, bro. Sometimes, I'm one of those guys that needs to see it right in front of me. You know what I'm saying? Like all that elements of learning and shit back in the day was like some people could read it, some people need to see it right in front of them and shit like that. Are you IAP? Are you talking about the actual verses with No, you can't be talking about Onyx versus Cypress Hill. Yeah, Mir, that's pretty much what I was saying about the Dipset verses, man. I was really feeling like they should have did a little bit more preparing. Like it was obvious the Locks did. The Locks were all the way there with their transitions from song to song. They were all the way there with their song selection. You know what I mean? Their outfits weren't too over the top. You know what I mean? They were there to rap. They were there to rap. You know what I mean? Sometimes, Dipset back in the day, Dipset has the element of they're much cooler than you. Dipset has the swag. When Max B and Jim Jones were beefing with Dipset, what was the element that Dipset had above them? They were much cooler than them. They were in the limelight. They had the fame. You know what I mean? They were wavy, to use Max B's term, in comparison to a bunch of guys who were getting a minimal amount of money compared to them. So they use that to drive it, man. They use that shit to drive a lot of that beef, whereas Ja Rule couldn't really utilize that against 50 Cent. I mean, shit, once you get a deal with Shady Aftermath, Interscope Records, backed by Jimmy Iovine, Dr. Dre, the greatest of all time, Dr. Dre, I think it needs to start being mentioned a little bit more. You know what I mean? And I don't even need Detox, to be honest with you. And I'm not the type of person that would ever consider the Compton album Detox, but I'm saying we don't need Detox, just to see the way that Dr. Dre changed from the Chronic to the Chronic 2001. That's enough for me. You know what I mean? Going back and being able to listen to the Chronic 2001, something when I was like, beyond understanding, you know what I mean? Yeah, Lloyd Banks is definitely dope, man. I agree with you there 100%. I was one of the people saying, yo, Lloyd Banks against Jim? Nah, man, nah. Lloyd Banks got that. But I'm not putting it past Jim now because Jim has a lot of records, man. Jim has a lot of records. Let me check out this poll right now. I want to see what everyone's saying in the poll. We're looking like So Seductive is the number one Tony Yayo song, followed by I Know You Don't Love Me, though. Pimpin', another song that I really like from Tony Yayo, and Curious, obviously, Yayo's love song, his girl song, which I think was dope. Some of those shits you can still remember to this day. That's why I say it's dope. When it's got that memory, you know what I mean? Then it is considered a catalog. Yayo's second album took a few different turns. I thought his second album was going to be called The Godfather of the Ghetto at first, which I wasn't too big on. You know what I mean? Thoughts of a Predicate Felon to The Godfather of the Ghetto. It might have been all right. You guys. But I really wasn't feeling the 50 Cent's Tax Write-Off album, though. Even though that had that edge that you would expect from Yayo. What I'm talking about that cockiness that you would get from Yayo. I think that was cool, but I don't know. I just never really got what I wanted as a fan from Tony Yayo's career or Young Buck's career. You know what I mean? I didn't really get what I wanted as a fan, just watching it and shit like that. But it was still the same back in the day, before I really got involved in the industry as well. That's why I got involved in this music shit, is because I wasn't hearing enough information about the artist that I wanted to know more about. And I was like, yo, I got to get involved in this shit. I got to start making sure nobody else is feeling like me. I got to start getting all this content out there. So there's hours and hours and hours of interview footage that I've done on the internet with different people explaining different things. You know what I mean? That's kind of why that's not kind of why, that's the 100% reason why I got involved in this. Because, yeah, you're seeing things. The industry was a lot different back then. We didn't hear as much. Let me see. Manny says Lloyd Banks is the best in G Unit. Lloyd Banks definitely had the second best, or he had the third best sales in G Unit. It went 50 Cent, the game, Lloyd Banks, the G Unit group as a whole, selling 350,000 first week. Young Buck selling 261,000 first week. Tony Yayo selling 215,000 first week. Mobb Deep selling 110,000 first week. Yeah, I hear you on that. I actually fell back from Young Buck during his third album, The Rehab. He was calling it The Rehab, and I just didn't understand it. You know what I mean? Buck was calling his album The Rehab, and I'm like, what the hell's the point of that? You just lost me as a fan, bro. Like, you aren't like, what, bro? Like, I got to be able to understand the story of your career. Like Lloyd Banks going from The Hunger for More. He wanted to do The Big Withdrawal. That would have made sense. But it made sense too when he went back and did The Rotten Apple. You know what I'm saying? Okay, we always hear about New York from the positive light, from the positive aspect, but now we're going to hear about New York from that gritty aspect, the rotten aspect of it. Hence, The Big Apple, The Rotten Apple. Hunger for More 2, Banks didn't release an album in another couple of years. Things really started to get jumbled at that point. He had no choice but to do The Hunger for More 2. And now he's getting into another series, which I really respect. The Course of the Inevitable 1, The Course of the Inevitable 2. Lloyd Banks said it at the show. He's like, yo, this is the first time that I'm performing. This is the first time, not performing. This is the first time that I'm releasing 2 albums. This is the first time that I'm releasing 2 albums in 2 consecutive years. Because before that, he was never actually able to release 2 albums in 2 years before. Like I said earlier, if you guys were tapped in, I made reference to the fact that 50 Cent, the only time he dropped 2 Lloyd Banks albums in consecutive years was Beg for Mercy in November of 2003 to July, the end of July, for Lloyd Banks' debut album. Well, Mobb Deep's album, it had features from 50, it had features from Tony Yayo, Buck, and it had features from Banks. Buck actually got their 3rd single, if I'm not mistaken. Give It To Me Baby featuring Young Buck. They did a whole video for it. Correct me if I'm wrong, you guys. Was that the 2nd single? I know we had Put Them in Their Place. But we also had Have a Party, but that was marketed different. Out of Control Remix, that was marketed different. 50 did a good job because if the budget wasn't there to put those records on the Mobb Deep Blood Money album, then he had to do and take the budget where he could. If he got the opportunity to put Mobb Deep on when he did the Massacre re-release, if he got the opportunity to put Mobb Deep on another big song with Nate Dogg, rest in peace, Have a Party on the Get Rich or Die Trying soundtrack, that's a good thing. But note, the Get Rich or Die Trying soundtrack was late 2005, like November, right around the same time as the Get Rich or Die Trying movie. Mobb Deep's album didn't drop until May. You know what I'm saying? There's a big time gap. It would have made more sense if Mobb Deep's album dropped in January. You know what I mean? It would have made more sense if the album dropped in January. So, yeah, man, this G-Unit Dipset rivalry. Jim Jones talking about he could get Lloyd Banks. I would like to see that one now that I've run the songs up against each other. I would like to see it because one of Joe Budden, somebody tell me the name of Joe Budden's co-host. I didn't get it. I'm sorry, man. I didn't get it. It's appalling that I didn't get Joe Budden's co-host name. I mean, ever since he got rid of Rory and Mal, I mean, it's like, all right, you know what I mean? Like, it is what it is. You know what I'm saying? I mean, if Joe Budden would have popped up and had Mikey T, the movie star, on his show, maybe it would have made a bigger dent in the industry. Who knows? You know what I'm saying? But anyways, let's move on from that. Let me see where I'm at with this performance. So Yayo went on to perform in one of his best songs. Pimpin', very good track. Banks is like, if you ever bought a Lloyd Banks album in your life, if you ever bought a Lloyd Banks album in your life, make some noise. If you bought Hunger for More 2 make some noise. If y'all not ready to go nowhere, this is the last time I'm going to ask you. I want to see you with one hand. I want to see you here one time. I want to see you raise your hand one time. In the front, in the back, the middle, the left. That's what Tony Yayo was saying. Yayo knows how to do his thing up there, man. This guy has performed everywhere. Hands in the air. Everyone at home watching. Everyone at home watching. I need you to put your hands in the air. Lloyd Banks went into Any Girl featuring the former Murder Inc. member, Lloyd. Wow. So Lloyd Banks, the record with Lloyd for Murder Inc., it wasn't that hot. You know what I mean? Even Lloyd released Caught Up with Ja Rule. It didn't really do nothing. You know, I can see what Lloyd Banks and G Unit were maybe thinking when they dropped that record. You know what I mean? Release it with the Murder Inc. cat. It'll create some buzz. But it didn't really work. You know, it would have been better if Lloyd Banks had worked with Ashanti, because the general public never really was all that accepting to Lloyd. His debut album actually only moved like 60,000 first week, something like that. Banks is like, can I do some more mixtape shit? Let's rock to this. Lloyd Banks went into a song that I had actually never heard, Practice Paroles, which is crazy. Banks is like, a lot of y'all grew up with us. If you've been effing with Lloyd Banks and Tony Yayo for the last 20 years, make some noise. Then Banks picked up a bunch of gifts from the crowd. This was pretty awesome. They sent Banks a bunch of blue flowers. We all know Banks. It was like this box, and there must have been like 75 flowers, and maybe 50 at the least. But it could have been as many as 100. So there was a shitload, and they were stuffed in there, you guys. All these blue flowers. Why blue? Blue Hefner, you guys. Everybody remembers the moniker. I would have really thought it was dope if the album after Rotten Apple was actually Blue Hefner. I just don't think they really got the opportunity to go that far with it, you know, because of everything that started happening with the record sales dramatically dropping. So Yayo's like, give you your flowers while you're still here. The flowers while you're here. And then we went into Beamer, Benz, or Bentley off the Hunger for More 2, featuring who? Juelz Santana. Yup. But there was no Juelz Santana coming out to join. Although Juelz Santana has been doing a lot. Juelz Santana has been appearing in interviews. Juelz Santana has been appearing in videos. You know what I mean? Juelz Santana has been doing quite a bit. It would have been dope to see him come out here, stand beside Lloyd Banks and shit like that. I'm not trying to say they're trying to sell the rivalry or anything like that. Maybe Juelz had something else he was doing, because I think he would have been there if he had the opportunity, you know, if it was just that easy to pull up. But it was just a quick version of Beamer, Benz, or Bentley with Yayo as the hype man. Such a dope track for them too, you know what I mean? To be on there, you know, the way their voices actually blended was dope. I'm fresh, I'm fly, I'm so damn high. Then he's like, I'm calm, I'm cool, everything brand new. You know what I mean? It was pretty dope how their voices blended on that shit. Banks is like, New York City, make some noise. If you downloaded, streamed that Course of the Inevitable 2, and everybody on here, I'm encouraging you all to go download and stream the Course of the Inevitable 2. Make some noise. If you bought a piece of merchandise, make some noise. If you didn't buy it, but you're going to do it tomorrow, make some noise. You got love for Tony Yayo? Make some noise. You got love for Lloyd Banks? Put your hands up. When I say Lloyd, you say Banks. This is a live interactive experience that you get with G-Unit. They learned over the years how to put together an amazing performance. Who in the chat has actually seen G-Unit live? And let me know what members of G-Unit you actually saw. When Yayo came out to I Smell, Yayo came out and the people went crazy, y'all. The people went crazy. It was evident when Yayo actually jumped up there that the people were hyped to see him. He got to perform So Seductive. He got to perform I Know You Don't Love Me, Pimpin', you know what I mean? He got to perform a lot of his cuts that show why he means something in the game. And Yayo takes issue, it seems, with a lot of people saying that they could contend with G-Unit, man. Yayo takes issue with that shit. So, guys, we're going to have to wait and see what comes of it. You know, now that Banks has not only mentioned it on the Joe Budden podcast in response to what Jim Jones was saying, but now he's mentioned it on a stage. You know what I mean? Now he's mentioned it on a stage. He actually went on the stage and said a lot of these things. You know what I mean? He went on stage and said a lot of these things, you guys, that I've gone over today, but it was an amazing performance with a lot of dope tracks. Like I said, dope tracks from the beginning stages of his career, tracks before his debut album, tracks from the first ever group album, tracks from his new albums, The Course of the Inevitable 1 and 2. You know what I'm saying? We got a lot of bangers from Banks on this one, man. So that's why I wanted to come on here and actually review it. I hope you all enjoyed my review of Lloyd Banks' live show. We're going to have to see if this is going to reignite the G-Unit and Dipset rivalry. I mean, maybe, but honestly, I don't think if it was Styles P up there or Sheik Luch or Jadakiss saying this about Lloyd Banks, he'd probably be saying the same thing, you guys. You know what I mean? Lloyd Banks, the guys from G-Unit, they're not going to back down for anybody when it comes to a competition of music. Look at 50 Cent and Kanye West. Kanye West was absolutely on fire before he dropped Graduation. Late Registration went up against Tony Yayo's album, Thoughts of a Predicate Felon, in 2005. Late Registration sold 800,000 copies first week. 50 Cent was going against a beast. 50 Cent was going against a beast, you guys. Kanye's first album moved about half of that, but his second album, the people were in tune. Late Registration, people might get it twisted, but Late Registration was actually my favorite Kanye West album. I like 808s and Heartbreaks, then College Dropout. 808s and Heartbreaks was dope. You know what I mean? He transitioned sound. Kanye is a dope singer as well. You know what I mean? A lot of those records from 808s and Heartbreaks. What do you think, though, Kanye West in the chat? Is 808s and Heartbreaks or College Dropout? Which one do you like better? I'm putting Late Registration number 1, and then I want to know what y'all think, though. What do y'all think about that one? Let me take a look at this poll before I end it. Actually, damn it. So Seductive, 52%. I like it. I like it, man. So Seductive took the top spot. You know, a lot of people try to trash So Seductive. They try to be like, come on, So Seductive. What do you mean, come on, So Seductive? So Seductive was arguably the best G-Unit song. Arguably. Some people say it. The comparisons are On Fire. If we want to do, you're right. The comparisons were On Fire. If we want to do Young Buck Dirty, we would say Let Me In, but you really got to do Shorty Wanna Ride. We could totally write Young Buck off. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? We could totally write him off and say Let Me In, but we're going to go Shorty Wanna Ride. We're going to go How We Do from The Game, and we're going to go So Seductive from Lloyd Banks, from Tony Yayo. I guess we got to put that in a poll, man. I guess we got to put that shit in a poll, to be honest with you, man. I guess we got to put that shit in a poll, to be honest with you. Which was the best G-Unit single? We're going to have to put that in a poll in the future. Let me see. Spawn says 50. Young Lloyd came to Kansas. Tony was locked up. Oh, shit. Is that KS, Kansas, obviously? 50 and Young Lloyd came to Kansas and Tony Yayo was locked up. Yeah, you know what I mean? I agree. It's like, damn, this dude came into the chat from hating to actually adding to the conversation. DJ Spawn, Young Buck. Young Buck was there. Yeah, obviously. Yep. Did you get an opportunity to meet any of the guys from G Unit that day, though, Spawn? Like, did you get an opportunity to actually, shake hands with a new G Unit Young Buck artist back then? I remember seeing Young Buck join G Unit for the first time on BET Rap City. Yep, that Bonafide Hustler that was on Young Buck's album. Bonafide Hustler with Young Buck, 50. I've been out here for too long. I deserve to get a bird. The fiends know my name from standing on this curb. I got Tommy on my shirt. Top G Unit songs, I'd have to go How We Do. I'd have to go How We Do. Shorty Wanna Ride, So Seductive, On Fire. Major shout out to the fake Kanye West in the chat, especially since you're adding to the conversation, man. Yeah, we all remember Buck when he was UTP, bro. It wasn't FTP, it was UTP. But do you remember Buck before that when he was a part of the Head Busters? When Birdman was trying to form a collective, when everybody started leaving? And then Juvenile was like, yo, come mess with me, Buck. Then Juvenile and Young Buck went to the West Coast to go mess with Suge Knight. And that's a story we might have to cover on another day. That's a story we might have to cover on another day, you guys. But I appreciate everybody tapping in on the live today. I wanted to give y'all something special. You know what I mean? I wanted to give y'all something special. Like I said, I appreciate all the new followers. I really appreciate everybody adding to the conversation. Sometimes people they never been on the channel before. You know what I mean? So sometimes people don't really understand what I'm doing, but when you tap in and you say, and you add something positive, we always keep it positive on the channel. You know what I mean? You don't got no other reason to believe that we don't. I've been doing this shit since 2009. You know what I mean? You've never had to worry about no suspect shit with me in the past. Yeah, I Stayed G'd Up was a dope track as well. If anybody on here wants to follow me on the gram, the time is now. Also, go check out Jaffe. Jaffe the Mac is the YouTube page. Y'all can go follow his YouTube so you can stay in tune with Jaffe and his music releases. That's right. Former G Unit associate Jaffe. Hopefully I'm going to have him on the channel soon to just, give me his history. And I want to learn about some of the things that he did in the game. You know what I mean? He was running around with some of the best. You know what I'm saying? He was running around with some of the best, and he actually makes some great music. He has a video out, so that's why I'm telling everybody to go click on the link that I have pinned up so you can actually tap in with Jaffe. Y'all probably heard about him on the Queen Slip interview when Queen Slip did an exclusive interview. Hell yeah, man. But I appreciate everybody that tapped in tonight. Appreciate everybody that watches this on demand. I hope you guys enjoy my play-by-play of the Lloyd Banks show. If you guys want to hear some of this in the future, let me know, because I go to a lot of shows, and we know at these shows, one of the best parts is when the artists start talking when the music goes off. They start talking, they start telling you about new albums, they start telling you about things that they've been hearing in the blogs, they start talking about new material they're working on. You know what I mean? They're all you know what I'm saying? They're talking about new material they're working on. So that's why I think it would be interesting to cover a lot of these shows in the future, man. So always in the chat, remember, you can comment on this video. You guys can comment on this video and let me know what you think, man. You can let me know what you want to see. If you've got a live performance out there that you want me to cover, let me know. I have no problem either going to the show. First of all, that's a good way to do it as well. Live reporting. You know what I mean? Go to the show, you take your notes while you're at the show, or you film it on camera. Boom, I could do that, and I could literally play the performance on mute. That could give me a whole new wave. You know what I mean? Because back in the day, I would put that shit on my YouTube page with these guys actually performing their songs. And that's not allowed no more. You know what I mean? You had to delete all that content. You had to delete that shit. I'm literally the guy who, when DJ Khaled and Ace Hood got out of their drop top, I walked in and followed them into the nightclub with the video camera. You know what I'm saying? So I hope y'all stay tuned. You'll see some dope interviews from me in the near future. You'll see some dope shit from me in the near future, man. Stay in tune. Follow me on Instagram, and I'll holla at y'all in a bit, man.